Hi-ho, it's Andy here, just popping in with a quick announcement. I'm going to be at CubeCon, which is happening later this week in Madison, Wisconsin. I hope to see a lot of you there. And I'm also going to have some Cube Fellowship pins with me. So if anybody buys a Cube Fellowship pin between now and CubeCon and wants to pick them up in person, you can do so. So you can check them out on our website. And also, if you see any of our players that are there from the Cube Fellowship, say hi. Now here's the show.
The Bridge of Death.
Oh, great.
Look, there's the old man from scene 24.
What is he doing here?
He is the keeper of the Bridge of Death. He asks each traveler 5 questions.
3 questions.
3 questions. He who answers the 5 questions. 3 questions may cross in safety.
But what if you get a question wrong?
Then you are cast into the gorge of eternal peril.
Oh, wacko.
Stop! Who would cross the Bridge of Death must answer me these questions 3. Ere the other side he see.
Ask me the questions, Bridgekeeper. I'm not afraid.
What is your name?
My name is Sir Lancelot of Camelot.
What is your quest?
To seek the Holy Grail.
What is your favorite color?
Blue.
Right, off you go.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
That's easy!
Stop! Who approacheth the Bridge of Death must answer me these questions 3. Ere the other side he see.
Ask me the questions, Bridgekeeper. I'm not afraid.
What is your name?
Sir Andy of Lucky Paper.
What is your quest?
To spread the word of Cube and build the Cube community.
What is your favorite magic card?
Phyrexian Dreadnought. No, wait. Masticore. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Lucky Paper Radio. My name is Andy. I'm here, as always, with my co-host, Anthony, not a seasonal allergy sufferer. Do you have allergies, I feel like?
A little bit. Honestly, this fall's been a bit rough.
Mine've gotten so much worse as I've gotten older.
I'm
I
sorry.
didn't have
I'm
any
sorry
as
to
a
hear.
kid, and then every year, it's just more and more. Getting old, man.
Allergies are a crazy thing.
They
if
are
you
crazy.
think about it. Like I was hearing somebody say something about like, oh yeah, there's this like great product and it's allergen free, and I'm like, that's false. Your body can be allergic to literally anything. Like your immune system can go crazy for whatever. I guess mostly proteins. They could say like it's salt. Anyway.
Yeah, who's
sorry
allergic
about
to
your-
salt? Is anybody allergic
There's
to
definitely
salt?
people that can't eat salt. I don't know if it's an immune response strictly. Anyway, this is not a medical podcast.
There are people that can't eat salt?
Yeah.
At all?
It's a horrible condition, yeah. Anyway, we're talking, you said 50 of our favorite cards, right? That's what I got right here.
Five.
Lightning round?
Did you actually take out? Is this your like stack of all the cards you were considering?
Yes.
Wow, I really appreciate how thoroughly you've done your homework.
I don't want to put it face up because then you'll see it.
Yeah, don't do that. There was a recent-ish episode. By the time this episode comes out, it'll probably have been, I don't know, a month, 2 months ago, of the Eternal Glory podcast, where they, as part of the podcast, went down their 5 favorite cards of all time. And I thought that would be an interesting exercise for us to do. We obviously talk a lot about cards we like on this show, but I think your 5 favorite cards of all time says a lot about your relationship with the game and what you value and what you think is interesting and cool. And I thought it'd be a cool jumping off point for us, and you appear to have prepared a stack of 50 cards.
You know, I started making a list last night, and then I was like, you know what, I should just go get these cards physically because that'd be fun to hold on to while we're recording.
Also, like, yeah, just how they feel in your hand, I feel like you'll know.
Yeah.
If you have to decide
I'll know
between two.
these specific cards.
Like, I was between 2 cards, and then I looked at one of them, sitting right here, and I was like, yeah, it's actually that one.
You know, making my list, I was like, oh yeah, all of my favorite cards are right here in these cubes and or decks, so I should just go fish them out. This might be the exercise that finally kills my relationship with Commander, because I can foresee that I just put this stack of cards that I pulled from various Commander decks
Just not
on
back
my
in their
desk,
decks?
and then I'm like, oh, I don't remember which one goes in which deck, and also these decks are illegal now, so oops.
Well, what an interesting byproduct of this episode that I didn't anticipate. Putting the last nail in the coffin for your relationship to EDH.
It's got to happen someday.
So yeah, we're just going to talk about our 5 favorite cards. And I think as Cube designers and Cube players, we have an interesting perspective on this because in the Eternal Glory podcast, they were mostly noting cards that they don't have an opportunity to play with anymore, and they were nostalgic about the era when they could play with them, either, when they were kids and they didn't understand what powerful cards were and could just play with whatever jank they had, or some constructed era of, a time past where they had a deck they were really fond of that they, took to victory in some big event, and there's a key card from that deck they really love that just is not playable anymore. And as cube designers and players, we get to play with whatever cards we want, and I was definitely struck by the fact that all 5 of my cards have been in one of my cubes at some point. All but one of them is currently in one of my cubes, because that's the whole point of a cube. You get to play with whatever cards you want.
Yeah, one of these is not in one of my cubes, and I was like, why not? Why isn't it there?
Time to design a new cube.
Okay.
The people are thirsty for a new
Next
Anthony
week,
Maddox cube.
we will make a...
It's been years since you designed a new cube. Actually, yeah, let's do that. Without knowing what that card is, I think we should use that as the seed for our next...
Okay, you know what? I think it's not a bad idea.
All right,
we'll get to it in a second.
That's going to be our next episode where we do the sort of iterative design process, starting from a single card as a seed crystal, and work out from there. I think you should go first, too, because I'm inclined to talk a lot more, and I don't want to, spend 45 minutes on mine and be like, quick, get yours in. So you should go first and take as much time as you need,
Okay,
Anthony.
Great. I thought it'd be funny. I mean, my first response, or my first thought was what are the cards that Andy's going to pick? I feel like I have a good sense. Are you interested in guessing what my 5 cards are? Is that a fun exercise?
Only if you promise to guess what we think my 5 cards are.
Yeah, I've got them written down right here.
But I think
if
I guess correctly, then it ruins the sizzle. So I can't guess ahead of time.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
I think I have to write them down.
Okay.
Let's take a brief pause. Matthew, edit this out. I'll write down my guesses, and then we'll see how close we are at the end.
So I'm pretty confident that at least 4 of these cards you're going to guess that they are correctly in this big stack that I put right here.
Yeah, I can think of way more than 5 cards that you really like, and so knowing where that line is between a card you really like versus one of your favorites of all time, I feel like is hard to draw that line.
All right, but let's start with the one you're obviously going to get right. It's, of course, Whitemane Lion.
That was one of the ones I would write down if I ever found a piece of paper, but I didn't, so...
That's okay. It's not like you have a computer there.
Okay, good point.
I've just talked about this card so much on this podcast already that I almost just didn't include it because it doesn't make sense.
It's been alluded to that you really like it. I'm not sure I've ever heard you really extol why you love this card. I mean, I have some guesses, but...
So this was a card that I feel like I have a very specific relationship with. I was scrolling back through Scryfall through just the all sets in history, and we started getting serious about drafting around Amonkhet in 2017.
I would say Kaladesh, one before, but close enough.
I played... Oh, the one before, that was before it?
Yeah.
Really?
It went Kaladesh, Aether Revolt, Amonkhet, I believe is the order.
You're right. So that was when I was most invested in, well, that's not even true. That's when I was starting to get really invested in Limited and in Magic more broadly. But we started a little bit sooner, and Eternal Masters was one of the sets that we were playing. We drafted that a couple times when we were sort of getting the first iteration or, an early iteration of the Baltimore play group, the Bud Magic Kitchen Table Pro Tour. We were hosting that at our office. We drafted Eternal Masters a couple times. And that was the first moment that I had one of these kind of level ups of, I get Magic more. And it's I've moved beyond that board game state of I'm just figuring out the rules and I'm just trying to do the game correctly. And now I'm actually making strategic decisions. And Whitemane Lion, if you're not familiar, is just a 2-mana 2/2, 1 and a white for a 2/2. It has flash. And when it enters the battlefield, return a creature you control to its owner's hand. And having this level up moment of, okay, here's a card that clearly has a downside, but I'm going to put it in my deck because I don't know what I'm doing, and then discover that, my opponent casts a removal spell on my other cool creature, and I'm going to save it. Or I have I think I probably drafted a blue-white deck, and the Man of War was in the set as well. And I'm going to pick up my Man of War, and then recast the Man of War, and bounce all your creatures continuously. Or I'll, block something, and then pick up the blocker after damage. It's just this card that is very simple and evocative, but just allows for... a lot of entry level, I think that's the right way to put it, right? Entry level strategic depth that made me fall in love with Magic.
I was going to say, too, another great simple thing to do with Whitemane Lion is just in, basic retail limited style Magic is just you bounce a tapped creature when they attack into what they think is no blockers, and now you have a blocker,
Yeah. I mean, that's why I love it, and it continues to be a card that, is a little bit below rate by today's standards if you were to put this in, any kind of context. But in Cube, we obviously have the ability to twist the knobs a little bit and control what we're doing.
I believe, isn't there a 2/2 flyer for 1 mana that's basically Whitemane Lion in standard right now? I think it's
we just
way
talked about
below
this.
rate for modern standards.
Yeah. But I mean, Core Skyfisher is very respectable. The idea of a 2-mana 2/3 flyer having this downside of having to pick up a permanent. And I love Core Skyfisher as well. Honestly, It's got even more play potentially because you can pick up anything. So the idea of like, I remember maybe even like the next level up moment of I don't have a third land, but I'll pick up my land, play my mountain again, and then be able to lightning bolt something. That's like, again, this really powerful kind of level up moment for an early Magic player. And I continue to love this style of card in all kinds of cubes, and this is from my main cube. It will be there forever. It took me a while to get it to a point where it was kind of playable in that cube, and it's still not great, but it's a C.
You say you love this style of card. You don't like any of the modern versions.
Okay, so you're right. I just love this card.
And Core Skyfisher, I think, is quite different not having flash. Like, it has
true.
like some overlap. There's like a Venn diagram of like what Whitemane Lion does, what Core Skyfisher does, and I actually don't like Whitemane Lion very much for my own personal taste, but I love Core Skyfisher, which is why I feel like they're different.
Yeah, I think that there's something that's very fundamental to our difference in taste in Magic, where I love this like combat trick. Oh, you thought I didn't have a blocker, but I did. I got you. And you're like, well, that was dumb. Like, why didn't you just do that on your turn? And I'm like, that's fun. It's delightful to be able to like
to be
feel
clear,
like
my
you're
take is
getting
not that it's dumb. Why didn't you do that on your turn?
I think that is your take.
No, it's not.
I'm here to tell you what your take is.
I think you're right. There's a difference in our like, core preferences and values in the game, and I generally don't love the really high variance cards. And if you look at Core Skyfisher versus Whitemane Lion, the ceiling on Whitemane Lion is a million times higher because you can absolutely blow out somebody. You can get a huge advantage in tempo or in mana or in card advantage, depending on when you get to flash it and bounce back to your hand. The ceiling on Core Skyfisher is not that high, but the floor is way higher because you can always cast it and bounce a land back to your hand. Whereas Whitemane Lion, I mean, I guess you can technically always cast it, but sometimes you have to put it right back in your hand because it does bounce itself if you don't have any other creatures in play. I just tend to not like the really swingy high highs and low lows on cards.
For many people, that is fun. And like
you can just speak for yourself. You don't have to say for many people.
Of I have what's another card that was close to my list? The Soul Sisters, Soul Warden or Soul's Attendant.
Essence Soul's Attendant, yeah.
Having those and just being like, oh, I can just keep casting this forever.
What about Guide of Souls, Anthony? Do you love Guide of Souls?
No. It's got too much going on. I mean, that's another funny thing is like I also like they quote unquote fixed Manowar, which is another card that was close on my list, by saying, oh, it can only bounce your opponent's creatures. But that just takes away that like little bit of honestly like simplicity in the way the card reads, but complexity in the way the card plays that is really not to my taste.
I do kind of wish Manowar said when it ETBs, return another target creature you control, or another target creature to its owner's hand. I don't want it limited to just my opponent's stuff, but it would be nice if new
being
players
able to play it on empty board.
Yes, it'd be nice to be able to play it on an empty board. That would be, I think, the perfect fix for me.
All right, next up. This is another card that just like is a really core part of my Magic history because the card that most disappointed me. So I feel like I have an emotional connection with how it hurt me, and then has turned out to be one of my favorite cards in the game, and it's also been in my cube, I think, since the beginning, and will probably stay there forever. So do you remember when we were starting to play some Magic, I think this was Shadows over Innistrad? I should know because this one is actually not the card from the set.
Are you going to talk about the time you made Brazella?
Yeah. So what happened was we were doing what did we call it? It was like a sealed league where, I mean, this was, just a group of friends. It wasn't like sponsored by a store or anything, but we, I think, opened up 3 packs and built a sealed deck. And then every week we would add another pack to our pool and update our deck based on whatever we opened.
I think we started with 6 packs, but yes.
We started with 6, so it just got like huge from there.
I mean, sealed is 6 pack normally. That's basic sealed.
Yeah. And in one of my early packs, I had one of these 2 angels that had meld, Bruna and Gisela. And card's really good. Like, I should be happy. I think I had Gisela first.
And the better one, too.
Very new to Magic. And I was like, oh, here's the thing that this set wants you to do is have these 2 angels and be able to meld them together. And the very last week where I was opening up my last pack to add to this pool, I was like, here's my last chance to open up this other angel, which is, of course, ridiculous. Like, the chance of getting, I guess maybe one of them's a rare, one's a mythic, so it's either a rare or mythic. It's still, like, very unlikely that I'm going to open this particular card. And I like to tear the Band-Aid off quick when you're a new Magic player. I mean, honestly, I still would do this if I was just cracking a pack. I don't remember the last time I've done that. But, like, go common by common and, like, really savor as you get towards that rare.
That's not tearing the Band-Aid off quick. That's the opposite of
Sorry, slowly. That's what I mean. Okay, slowly. Really
feel every hair being pulled out by the adhesive.
So I'm going to the back of the pack, and I hit the rare, and it was not Bruna, but Noosegraf Mob. And I was so disappointed, as I should not have been, but I was whatever I was. And then there was another card, and it wasn't just a token in the back, there was a foil Bruna.
I had no idea Noosegraf Mob was the regular rare in that pack.
Yeah, so I remember it very, very well.
And is that exact copy of Noosegraf Mob?
This is
How
not. I
confident are
don't
you?
know. I can tell you that it's definitely not because this is from Battle Bond.
Oh,
I think
gross.
that I think that maybe Noosegraf Mob, that one is maybe in a commander deck or something. I don't know. I should
Put
find it.
Noosegraf Mob in a commander deck? What
Look, you don't know how I play
what
commander.
the hell?
I was looking through some of my old commander decks, my deck lists from when we were starting to play commander. They're rough.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
building decks is hard. It's a skill
building
you
decks
got to
is
learn.
hard, and also we were just like building decks with the cards we had, so it's
Yeah.
not like this is an optimized thing. It's just like, oh yeah, I have a commander that says put a bunch of creatures in your graveyard, so every single card that I had that said be able to put creatures in your graveyard, which, you know, maybe actually included Noosegraf Mob, because this is a creature that can go to the graveyard. So, Noosegraf Mob, it's a 6 mana 0/0, but it enters with 5 counters on it, and whenever a player casts a spell, remove a counter and make a 2/2 zombie. I just love how much this card makes a bunch of zombies, I guess is really all I'm trying to
I
say.
love how this card does the thing it does.
It's an extremely aspirational card that, you know, oh, I'm going to add more counters, or I'm going to cast it and then cast a bunch of cheap spells next turn and turn it into this like pseudo storm card, but with a very high floor, assuming you're okay casting a 6 mana spell. It's kind of like resistant to removal in an interesting way, and there's also a lot of like weird stuff you can do with it if you make a bunch of zombies and then pick it up with Whitemane Lion, for example, and then I get to recast it. Maybe there's a little bit of a theme here. It doesn't have any power, so you can buy it back with a lot of cheap, like conditional reanimation spells.
Graceful
that'll put it back.
Restoration it.
Graceful Restoration, which also gives it an extra counter. Oh, wait, no, you can. You know what I'm saying.
You probably want to
either
get it
another
and something
counter, or you
else
get
back.
it and something else.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I also love that when I was building my first cube, this was a card that was not very familiar to people, but it kind of got them excited. They were like, oh, like, what's this dumb, like, dollar store Grave Titan you've got there? And then they play with it and they're like, oh, actually, that was kind of sick. Like, I kind of love playing with this card. So that is my Noosegraf Mob, and it's one of my favorite cards of all time.
A great pick. And also, I gotta say, great art. You haven't mentioned art yet, which is
Oh,
surprising.
yeah.
Art weighs very heavily on my favorite cards, and part of the reason I hate Whitemane Lion is I hate that stupid art.
I don't love the illustration on Whitemane Lion. It's okay. It's a classic Zoltan Boros joint. Oh, with collaboration with Gabor. Okay, that's cool.
But Noosegraf Mob.
Noosegraf Mob.
Great.
It's like, yeah, I mean, this sort of flavor of here's this big pile of zombies that is going to slowly unspool and like spread across the battlefield. I think that comes across really well. All right, so I'm thinking about my sort of journey through Magic, and I think that 2 of these cards might be a little bit surprising. We talked a little bit on another podcast about how we're kind of spikes and we like to play cheap spells, play efficient interaction, but through my Magic journey, I have also been a little bit more of a Timmy and like to do just like big, exciting, splashy
Can I guess
stuff.
this one?
Yeah, what do you think this one is?
Avacyn.
No, but...
Is it the stupid Pure Reflection?
No, that was I thought about that one too. I love Pure Reflection. No, this is everyone's favorite Genesis Wave. So when we started playing Commander, I was much less focused on winning the game than how much stuff can I just get in the battlefield at once and then
You
feel
were a
really
Commander
good
player.
about it. I was a Commander player, yeah. Everyone goes through this phase. Genesis Wave is X, green, green, green. Reveal the top X cards of your library. Put any number of permanents with mana cost X or less among them into the battlefield. And that's awesome. I just love doing that. Just like ramp as much as possible and then see how big of a Genesis Wave that you can cast. It's kind of funny that a lot of times I would do this and people would be like, okay, so like now you have a combo and you win. And I'm like, no, look at all my cool stuff. Look at how I have Rampaging Baloths and also put 4 lands into play. And therefore I make 4 4/4s. And also they all get counters because this creature says every creature enters with counters.
And also, I have Earthcraft.
And also I have Earthcraft, so now I can make a bunch more mana and I'll play this
Regrowth and play Genesis Wave
Genesis
again.
Wave again next turn. And people didn't think that was as fun as I did. I think
Shocker.
you had the smart idea to tell me to put Altar of Dementia in a lot of my commander decks because that was actually a way that I could then
Yes.
kill people.
Pretty efficient little tidy win condition in a deck that just wants to do a bunch of things.
Yeah, and I rebuilt sort of a green-white Selvala Explorer Returned deck. Ooh, maybe like 3 years ago, and I was like, okay, let me just build like the commander deck that I love if I'm ever gonna play any commander. And I really also enjoyed playing Genesis Wave in that version. Again, it's like I'm just doing the stupid thing I want to do. And I realized that casting Genesis Wave, you don't have to do it for 30. Doing it for like 7 is usually pretty good. And again, then you get your Eternal Witness and you can buy it back and do it again. That like little Genesis Wave is really satisfying.
The
to
little
me.
10 mana spell.
Yeah.
I agree that card is very exciting and very simple. And I even experimented with it for a while as one of my splashy rares in my starter decks, my green starter deck. I was like, what if Genesis Wave was here? Is that a thing? And it didn't work out. But
I think it encourages people to be really bad Magic players. So I think it's a good idea for you not to put it there, because
that's the problem.
The like, oh yeah, actually just doing this for a small number is like so much value, and just being like, okay, I spend 6, 7, 8 mana and I get like 3 lands and a powerful threat. Like that's a great card, but you just want to hold on to it as long as possible, and that's a mistake.
Yeah,
I did really like, sort of as part of this phase in my being a horrible Magic player, enjoy Avis and Angel of Hope, and what's the creature that gives things hexproof? Archetype of
Endurance.
Endurance, is that it?
That's the one. Little wild boar.
Similar to the Genesis Wave, I like to cast Tooth and Nail and then just get those 2 cards and say,
safe.
like, everything is indestructible and everything has hexproof. I'm just extremely safe. And it's like, you didn't get a combo and kill us? It's like, no, I don't know how to do that. I made myself safe.
You're also not that safe. Overloaded Cyclonic Rift.
Yeah.
Merciless Eviction.
This was before
Farewell.
This was before Farewell existed. Merciless Eviction, I think, was the thing that made me feel unsafe. I didn't like that. So when I rebuilt my Druids deck, I also added blues, so I had counter spells, and it's like, great. Now I'm
safe.
Now I'm safe. I have Force of Will to protect. Oh, so this is also the card that is going to be, I guess, our new seed crystal for a cube, is how do we make a cube where Genesis Wave is good?
That's the one we just picked? Oh, God.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great. I mean, I think it's going to be good exercise for me because I've never actually built a cube where green ramp is a big thing, or really any kind of ramp. So I'm excited for that cube. Maybe everybody gets a Genesis Wave. No, we're just building a normal cube.
No spoilers on what you want to do with it. But yeah, tune in for our next seed crystal design episode. Emergent Design, Genesis Wave.
All right, you want to guess my next card? I'm trying to go a little bit chronologically in terms of like my Magic experience and cards that I have a special affection for and a special moment of learning with.
This feels like it's going to be one of the cards from the regular cube. I feel like this is the next thing in your chronology of Magic. And I'm trying to think of the cards that I feel like you had a learning moment about in the early days of designing the regular cube. Rampaging Balos was a problem.
I did,
and it's a card you love. But you've already
true.
mentioned it, and I think you wouldn't have mentioned offhand a card you were about to name as one of your other favorite cards.
Wow, you're really metagaming this.
This is how I always do every sort of quiz or test taking.
Do you have this issue when watching reality TV that they start like really focusing on somebody and then they're like, oh, this person's going home? Like they want to make sure they get this person's personal story in before they get cut.
For sure.
It kind
you
of
can
ruins
tell from
it.
the first 12 minutes of any episode of the Great British Bake Off like who is going to be in contention for going home.
And the show's still great because that's not what it's about, but
true.
Kind of a bummer.
Knight of the Reliquary.
No, that's incorrect. The correct answer is Archfiend of Ifnir. I don't really know what the lesson here is, but again, we sort of, around this time, we're really getting into limited, and I actually found my deck picture. I'll just throw this in the Discord. This was prominently featured in the first retail limited draft that I ever 3-0'd, and I was so stoked. I was so excited. I just had gone to one of the SCG cons that is at the Baltimore Convention Center, and I was just like, I want to get good at limited. I'm just going to do drafts. I'm just going to draft all day.
You had never 3-0'd a retail limited draft before that point?
I'm pretty confident, yeah.
Wow. A bold move. I mean, that's bold to go to a SCG con and just sit down and draft all day.
I mean, it was just one before. Side events, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
But drafting is hard, and I remember doing a bunch of drafts at our office with all the Baltimore folks, and it was just I remember Pete just being like, yeah, this is hard. It took me 2 years to be able to ever win a draft. It's just going to take a ton of practice. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do it. And then I also remember posting my deck list, which now I'm looking at it and I'm like, this looks like kind of hot garbage.
Do you have your sideboard is the question?
I do have my sideboard in the picture. And I remember posting this in the text channel with the Baltimore group. And I remember somebody just being like, great job being the only person in black.
Was it Sean?
Yes, of course it was. And just going from this high of I want to share and celebrate that I finally did it, and having somebody just be like, yeah, it wasn't
you drafted enough
drafted
times that you got lucky. Congratulations.
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, Archfiend of Ifnir, it's a 5-mana 4/4 with flying. Whenever you cycle or discard a card, put a -1 counter on all creatures you control. It also has cycling.
It's a 5/4, right?
5/4. Yeah, did I say 5/5?
You said 4/4.
Not only is this a great card that was very powerful, I also remember just drawing it every single game and just always having it. And part of that maybe was, my great deck building I had a ton of cards with cycling in my deck, and it just wrecked my opponent. I remember my last opponent was somebody who had traveled to Baltimore and was really having a rough day. They were not feeling good, and I just drew it 2 games in a row and crushed them, and they were just like, I'm so sad. I've been losing so much. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, but also I'm so happy right now.
Wait, you played with a friend at SCG-Con?
No. This was just a stranger who we were chatting up.
Okay,
and he was just like, yeah, I've lost so bad. I'm going home now. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, but also I wish I could celebrate this moment with somebody. And that's why I love Archfiend of Ifnir. I do wonder a little bit. I see this in a lot of cubes. I think partly it's just like cycling is an awesome mechanic and is especially like a cube-friendly mechanic. It's really easy to slot some cycling into any kind of cube. But I also wonder if I've had a little bit of influence just because I talk about it occasionally and put it in a lot of cubes.
I didn't expect 2 big black creatures in your top
right?
5 cards of all time.
And I gotta say, this last one doesn't make a sapperling, so...
Nothing makes a sapperling. Wow.
Yeah.
Also, I'm surprised we got to the 4 most important cards to you in rough chronological order before even reaching you having a cube at all.
That is interesting, and I was going through like all my cubes, all my decks, and the favorite cards are these like ones that I have a lot more nostalgia for, and maybe there's cards that I think are better balanced or like I enjoy casting them more in this more like academic sense, but the cards that I have this emotional attachment to that is kind of what comes to mind when you say favorite, and also are like early on the bell curve or on the learning curve of my Magic experience where they had a huge impact, where once we started cubing, it's like, okay, now I'm kind of in the grind. I will say this 3-0 deck, also has an Honored Hydra, and so I'm pretty sure this Honored Hydra and this specific Archfiend are the 2 cards that I drafted that day and have been in my cube forever.
That's sick.
All right, this last card. You will not guess this card because
okay.
This was a little bit of
I won't try
a wild card. This is Sphinx's Tutelage.
Okay.
This is 2 and a blue for an enchantment. Whenever you draw a card, target opponent puts the top 2 cards of his or her library into his or her graveyard. If they share a color, repeat this process. It also has 6 mana, draw a card, and discard a card. I've never done that. It's not a card that feels like super important to my Magic journey. It's not like, oh, I love Sapperlings, I love Squirrel Nest, I love all these little guys. But this card feels like it's sort of been looming in the background throughout my Magic journey. I think that Origins was the first set that we played. I was, again, sort of looking through old sets, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm familiar with these cards. I remember that when I was like trying to build my first decks, seeing a bunch of these. And then it was a little bit of a scourge in some of the Commander games that we played. People would occasionally play this card and just mill you out. It's sort of funny that like it's just kind of felt a little bit ever present. And when I really had a moment with it recently was at, I want to say last year's CubeCon. I was drafting Eric Klug's Pauper Cube, Peasant Cube, because it's an uncommon.
Hey, you did it.
I did.
You've grown so much.
It's taken me a number of years. And I saw this in maybe like mid pack 1, and I felt like I had this sort of like superpower. I was like, oh, people don't know what this card can do. And I've seen this like occasionally in the background of my Magic experience, and I understand how powerful of a win condition this is. And I'm going to take this, I'm going to build my whole deck around it, and I think this is going to be a great strategy. I mean, you talk sometimes about like drafting a cube, you like to come to it with a thesis. Like this is my idea of what the best strategy is going to be. And I thought I'm just going to build a control deck around Sphinx's Tutelage, and it worked so well. And I think for me, the lesson was kind of twofold. One part was Sphinx's Tutelage is in fact kind of insane. It's a really, really fast win condition in the right kind of deck. I remember in the very first game, cycling a bunch of things and then casting Lorien Revealed. And my opponent, after having read this card a couple times and they're like kind of getting it, they pick up their deck and start doing the thing, and then they kind of feel the thickness of their deck, and they're just like, let's go to game 2.
They didn't even play it out. That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Weighing the deck and being
picked it up just to like start doing it quicker rather than flipping it while it's on the table. The second lesson to that draft was that I think I only did that 3, maybe 2 times. I actually like won the game with Sphinx's Tutelage, and realizing that like here is this card that I've sort of built my whole strategy on, but I'm not going to draw it every game, and I need to figure out how to scrap it out when I don't draw my cool win condition. And I'm going to win by having this like random looter that I get a counter on, or I have this like big flash flyer, or maybe I have a young pyromancer that I'm going to also use those cantrips to make a bunch of guys. And I think that was kind of a learning moment where it's like, I knew that, but now I feel like I've internalized that lesson of you're drafting a deck all about one card, but you're not going to draw it every time, and you need to have a cohesive deck that everything is working towards that goal.
I thought you were going to say that it just caused you to have a strategy in mind, and you had that card in your deck, and that's why you drafted a good control deck. And if not
Yes,
for like
yeah.
having that signpost, you wouldn't have been able to know and internalize what your deck needed to like survive to the point of the game where you can you know, possibly win with that card. And I'm just sitting here screaming, yeah, that's just Bow of Nylea in the Ornithopter cube. Like, you don't have to draw it. It's the thing that will get you to draft a good control deck.
And like, I think
everyone thinks it's a problem. Anyway.
That really speaks to sort of my Magic journey. Is like Genesis Wave is a card that makes you play badly, and Sphinx's Tutelage is a card that made me play much better. And yeah, build a deck that was much more cohesive, and a deck that had the kind of like card selection and card draw that I just wanted to mill people. I still just wanted to do the big thing of like mill 30 cards all at once, but still those cards were cohesive and made sense. And like, this is, again, it's not a card that, will it be my favorite card in 5 years? No. The fact that it's always been kind of in the background of my Magic experience is what makes it appealing to me, because it does kind of suck to lose to, and so I don't think that this is going to be in a lot of cubes.
Well, I'm really glad to hear about that story about how your deck won with Sphinx's Tutelage. And oh wait, let me see Check's notes. You also had power play in that deck, so I'm sure that was not a factor at all.
You know, we could litigate that. I think that
Sphinx's Tutelage got me to draft a really good and cool control deck, and oops, I'm playing the only conspiracy at the table.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I really didn't mean to take the sales out of that story. I'm a little surprised. Not at that card selection necessarily, but I'm a little surprised that two of those cards, to me, seem to be about times where you won a lot of Magic. Like,
why are you surprised by that?
Because I think if you was like, you know, caring about the outcome of the game, but not being so spiky as to like have that be the most important thing for you. But, you know, here's a story of a draft that I won, and here's a story of the day that I came in top 8 of the like 500 player field at CubeCon, and this is one of the drafts I 3-0'd. It's a little funny to me.
Yeah, I mean, okay.
That's not a criticism at all.
All right, here we got honorable mentions. We got a Squirrel Nest. Everybody loves Squirrel Nest.
He literally has a stack of 50 cards in his hand. This could be a long time.
No, we're not going to do that. But, you know, we got some Archangel of Thunes. Oh, this is a good one. Plains.
Nice. That is a really good
It's a really good Plains.
And now you have to put that specific Plains on the cards mentioned page.
Easy. Yeah, this is a great Plains.
That one's not that easy.
You should definitely go look at it. There are so many Plains now. The hard part is scrolling through Scryfall to find it.
Yeah, you got to use the actual ID too, because that has multiple Plains.
We got Earls of Squirrels. I mean, I was looking back through all of the, like, my old Commander decks, looking at old draft pictures, stuff like that, and trying to think about, like, what are those magic moments of the cards that I really fell in love with. And I kind of thought that a lot of the cards that would spark the most joy were like the chase cards, like, oh, I opened this and it was like a really expensive card and I felt a moment of joy. Or I like finally bought a Gaia's Cradle when it was only stupid expensive, not insane expensive. And that was a really fun moment to be able to put that in my Commander deck. And actually, it's like a little bit hollow to be like, oh, look, I can do this broken thing and now I have a ton of mana and I'm going to win this Commander game. And that didn't feel good. Like, that's not a moment of satisfaction that resonated over time for me and sticks with me. But these moments of, I felt like a level up of, I'm playing in a different way and I'm improving, and these were the cards that kind of carried me through that. Or the fun experiences of, like, I got to make a ton of mana and then cast Genesis Wave. Like, that is so much more emotionally rewarding than the cards that I guess were, I don't know, notable in other ways.
I think it's a great selection. I could have guessed some of those, but not all of them.
We got a Selesnya Sanctuary here. That's a good one.
I would have thought bounce lands in general might have been in your top 5 as like a representative bounce land. Sun Titan in that pile, out of curiosity?
Sun Titan's not in the pile, but it's
that was a dark horse guess for me. I feel like Sun Titan is a card you used to love in Commander.
I sure did. We got a Verdant Force. We got a Deranged Hermit. Those are good. Actually,
your color preference is much more obvious in your big stack than your 5
also,
selected.
I'll be honest, half of these cards were another Commander deck that I also started thinking about making literally years ago, and it's just been sitting in a box kind of on its own. But I was like, yeah, let's finally just make the Saproling Commander deck. And I put them in a pile and was like, I don't have any more energy for this. Anyway, so that's where my Bayou's been for a while, is just sitting with these Saprolings.
Nice. Thank you for sharing, Anthony. A lovely selection of 5 cards, and yeah, some surprises in there. Honestly, as you were talking about Noosegraf Mob, I'm like, maybe I should put this in Sacred Geometry too. I mean,
yeah,
it's
makes zombies.
It makes the right kind of token. It's really clean for what it does. Like for how like kind of weird it is very simple, which is a rare combination. Usually when a card does something weird and kind of unique, it takes a bunch of rules checks to do it.
Yeah.
And that one doesn't require that. So Got me thinking about it a little bit. I started playing Magic as a kid. You did not. You referenced the time. I still maintain our very first draft was a Return to Ravnica draft. You think it was an Origins draft. I will say Origins was the latest set when we did that first draft, but I'm still 90% sure that it was a Return to Ravnica draft. But either way, that was the era when we got back into Magic as adults and have been playing continuously since. I also played as a kid. And when I got back into Magic, I was able to look back at cards and kind of figure out when I quit because I looked back chronologically and was like, when do I stop recognizing cards? And It turns out I quit around 8th edition. I have no memory of any Mirrodin cards, but I do remember 8th edition being a thing. So that was the window when I stopped playing Magic when I was a kid. And I forget exactly when I started, but I know that I was at the Games Workshop in the Exton Mall around the time that Mercadian Masks was released. So it's a pretty big era that I was still playing Magic as a kid, but I was young. And I had to pull my favorite card from this first era of me playing Magic. And there were so many cards. I feel like something about being a kid. I feel like I have such a stronger emotional connection with so many of these cards than I do any cards I play with now as an adult. And maybe when 20 more years passes, I'll have more affection for these cards I'm playing with now. But I also think there was something to the way the cards were designed and the way the art was drawn and the way the game was played. Like, this was very much the era of Magic where, like, I didn't go on the internet to see anything about Magic cards. Like, I knew about cards when my friends had them or my cousins had them in their deck. And that was the first time I ever saw them. And I might never see them ever again. And they felt like these weird, magical objects that like could do a thing in this game, but I didn't know how many existed. I didn't know where they came from. It was just like there's a lot of mystery shrouding Magic cards in a time that I think is actually a really beautiful part of the game that is just lost forever thanks to the communication age. But
I don't know. I think it's kind of coming back. The description of like I don't know how many there are and I don't know where they come from. That's exactly how I feel about Magic today. Which is, I mean, that's kind of cool in a way.
There's a lot of cards I could pick from this era as cards that were among my favorite. And
so I've made my guesses all wrong, I'm realizing, and I should have Kamal Pitfighter and Bloodfire Colossus on this list.
I did paint Bloodfire Colossus on my wall when I was a kid, so that was one of the ones I considered from this era. Kamal Pitfighter was another one of my favorite cards from this era. But the one I actually chose was Masticore. I loved Masticore when I was a kid. I still love Masticore today. It's still one of my favorite cards in all of Magic. This is 4 mana for an artifact creature Masticore. It is a 4/4. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice Masticore unless you discard a card. 2 mana, Masticore deals 1 damage to target creature, and 2 mana, regenerate Masticore. A pretty iconic card. I think a lot of our listeners will know this. And even if you don't know this specific card, this is a now like trope within Magic that has been riffed on many times. These Masticores are cards that always make you discard cards, usually every turn for like some weird upside. Like that's kind of what a Masticore is in the Magic world. Really what did it for me with this card when I was a kid, I was not good enough to know that this was a competitively strong card. I think the fact that it was competitively strong when I was playing definitely sort of added to its aura. Like it had an aura around it. I knew other people also valued it, but I certainly didn't understand why it was powerful. But I did love the art. I was obsessed with the art. I remember drawing that art in my sketchbook over and over again multiple times. This like weird lion with like multiple mouths and this weird human face, and it's like bitten the spire off of some building, and it's got all these rippling muscles that look very human
rippling
and not
muscles.
And
that's a theme in some of your early artistic
tune
style.
into a future episode perhaps of Magic Doesn't Exist if you want to hear about all the muscles that I used to draw.
My favorite thing is I suspect the art description for this card was 3 rows of teeth, and the art director was
that would be incredible.
Was picturing like a shark mouth with like multiple rows of teeth going back, and the artist was just like 3 rows of teeth. All right. 1, 2, 3. We got 3 mouths.
It would be incredible if that's how it happened. My understanding of the art direction, especially in that era, was that it was nowhere near that specific. So I'd be surprised if that's how it went, but it is kind of cool. And also, honestly, the background colors are huge for me. Like the sort of Miami Vice, like, yellows and pinks and blues in the background made it really stand out from the other cards in a way that wasn't like incongruous. It definitely felt like it fit in the Magic world, but it had this very like objectifying framing. It just takes up the entire frame. There's no setting. The background is just kind of like graphic. And I loved it. And now that I'm older and understand something about how Magic cards play, I also think it's a really interesting inevitability control win condition that also doubles as like a good mid-range threat in cubes mechanically. I play this on my old school cube. It is one of the reasons I built my old school cube, and I just love that it's the kind of card that you can either like play on 6 mana and have your whole plan be, I'm just going to make sure this never dies. This is my inevitability, control piece win condition. And compared to like a planeswalker or something, I think it's so much more cool to have to like protect your 4/4 artifact creature. Or you just play it in a mid-range deck and you don't hold the regeneration mana up necessarily because you just want to like have some tempo on your side and you just say like, well, you have a turn to answer this, otherwise I'll have regeneration up for the rest of the game. And if you do answer that, then I'm taxing your resources and one of my other things I played is going to kill you. It's a great card that obviously has a storied role in Magic's history, and it looms very large in my childlike love of the game when I was a kid, and that's what I picked from the old school Magic. There's other cards that are in contention there. 7th edition Beast of Burden, loved that card. Kamal Pit Fighter we mentioned. I also, the closest one to dethroning this one is Phyrexian Dreadnought, a card I also was obsessed with as a kid. I don't have it in me to pick a reserve list card as one of my favorite cards.
Is Masticore not on the reserve list? Masticore's on the reserve list.
It is?
Yeah.
Oh, no. It's just not good anywhere, so that's why it's not money. How much does it cost?
$16.
It costs $16 for a Masticore?
Yeah. Sorry. If you want the From the Vaults one, because they pushed
reprinted the reserve list card?
of the reserve list that one time, at least one time. That one's only $6.
Okay, well, at least I picked a more accessibly priced reserve list card for one of my favorite cards in the early days of Magic.
Phyrexian Dreadnought was going to be one of my guesses, so I'll give myself partial credit.
I maintain Phyrexian Dreadnought is the coolest card in all of Magic, and it is no contest. Not quite breaking into my top 5 favorites, but the coolest, no question.
Do you know a little bit of the story about Phyrexian Dreadnought?
I know I've heard the story before, but I can't recall what it is off the top of my head. But regale us and our listeners with it.
It's an 11-11?
12-12.
To 12-12. So they had printed, I think, a 10-10 and an 11-11.
Croson Skyscraper, or Sky Toucher.
Great.
Croson Sky Toucher.
That's it. That's right. Sky Toucher. And Mark Rosewar was like, I want to keep this going. I want to make it 12-12. And the head designer at the time was like, okay, you can do that, but like you have to have a good reason. Like you can't just like print a 12-mana 12-12. And he was like, okay, I'm going to go figure it out. And he went into his laboratory and he came back with Phyrexian Dreadnought. And they were like, yep, you did it.
Card is so cool. I don't want to talk too much about that one because it's not my top 5.
It's not your top. Focus on the Masticore. I'm a big fan of one of the reiteration or references, Razormane Masticore, that turns one of your cards into a lightning bolt every turn for free. It's great.
You always say lightning bolt. It has to be a creature. That makes it. It's a strangle.
Okay, you're right.
Which makes it significantly worse because if your opponent has no creatures, you still have to discard a card, and that's not great. But
no, that is great. If your opponent has no creatures, then they're taking 5.
That's true, but they could be taking 8 if it was a lightning bolt.
Don't look a gift horse in its 3 mouths.
What if it's pacified?
That's bad. That has happened to me before.
Mine are also in chronological order. And so the next card for me here is like one of the first cards I fell in love with when we got back into the game. Like you said, around Origins. Origins was the set I remember being released while we were playing. Like I remember like, oh, this is the new set now. And it was the first set I remember actually coming out and being aware of.
I actually remember discovering that Kythian had a backside much, much later after we drafted this set. I don't think I put it in my deck because I was like, I don't understand what this card does.
In this era, we were playing kitchen table Magic, but we were using the modern ban list, which nothing we were building had anything to do with Modern's metagame of any kind. We were just playing with whatever cards we had, and we had not yet discovered Commander, which would soon take over our sort of casual Magic playing. But I
blame Dan for that.
Was it Dan that brought Commander? I think it was Dan. Yeah, he's big on the new technology. He's always got his finger on the pulse of what the new thing is. Yeah,
that's so true.
Yeah. Anyway, in this sort of brief period where we were playing, what I think is honestly, maybe Cube aside, the best way to play Magic is with a naive group of people that are not invested monetarily or, time-wise in the game and just have some cards and like are trying to build the best kitchen table decks they can. The problem is you can't sustain that because obviously everyone loves that and then you get more invested and then you're down the rabbit hole. But in that brief window where you just get to be playing casual Magic with whatever cards you have available, it's a dream.
I remember being in that space and then playing against somebody who was much more invested and like not super invested, but enough that they like had a real deck. And I showed them my deck and I was like, oh yeah, like this, I'm trying to do this and that. And he's like, okay, well, this is the best card in your deck. Why do you only have one of them? And I was like, because I only have one of them. Like, what do you mean? Yeah. I opened up booster packs and I don't know what you're talking about.
It's a great way to play the game. It's a shame it's not sustainable. But my favorite card from this era by far is Managorger Hydra. This is one of my favorite cards of all time. 2 and a green for a creature Hydra. It's a 1/1 with trample, and whenever a player casts a spell, put a +1/+1 counter on Managorger Hydra. This is the kind of Timmy card I like. I tend to not like, cards that are just 12 mana, you win the game, but I do like your Phyrexian Dreadnoughts, where it's like got some weird like build around big downside, or a card like Managorger Hydra, where it's like, okay, this is a 3 mana 1/1, but it will get out of hand if given enough time. Really, what it comes down to for me, I've said this before on the show, is like, I don't like cards where it's just like you cast it and literally the game is over. Like, because you resolve this card, the game is over. Because you don't get to play with the card. All you did was put it on the stack and your opponent was like, I guess I lose, and scooped. Managorger Hydra is not how that works. That has to stick and play, and you play the game with Managorger Hydra in play. You get many turns of this card doing its thing before it actually wins the game for you, which is what I really like about it. And I built, in the early days, a like Bant control deck. And it was only banned because I was splashing green for Managorger Hydra. The best win condition I could possibly imagine in a deck that was playing like a couple of bad cantrips and like counter spells and removal spells. Like, the first couple times I played it, it was great because none of us had removal in our decks. And so I was like, aha.
Yeah, why have destroy your creature? No, I want to make my own creature.
I did have removal spells because I'm a control player actually at heart, which people maybe don't know. But most other people didn't have control spells in their deck. Like Josh was trying to do the Stormtide Leviathan thing, and I was like, that's cool. You can put
that was so frustrating.
You can put an 8-drop in your deck. I have counter spells. So.
I didn't.
Okay, either way, I remember that after the first couple matches with this deck where no one had removal, everyone brought removal in, and then I was like, I have to protect my Managorger Hydra now, and I went digging for like spells to protect it, and like had this just awful, weird pile of a deck where the only win condition was 4 copies of Managorger Hydra, and the rest was just a bad control deck. But I still love this card to this day. It's probably the first taste I ever had of that sort of protect the queen style gameplay, which is actually more of a tempo gameplay than a control gameplay to me. But it's still why I love Dark Confidant, Young Pyromancer, Monastery Mentor, like these cards where it's like, if I resolve this and I can protect it and play the game as normal, I will just run away with the game. I do love that type of gameplay, and this is probably the first taste I got of it, and it also was just my favorite card at a time where my relationship to the game was healthier and beautiful.
Yeah. Do you think it's fair to say that you kind of built like a Delver deck? It's like classic, wait till turn 3 to deploy my threat, and then from here on out, all I do is interact with you.
And also at the time, I was like, I'm not going to need a counterspell up on turn 3. They only can play a 3-drop. They're not going to play a Stormtide Leviathan until later on. So
I mean, very true.
Yeah, it's honestly like it's a really bad take on a Delver deck, but that is the same kind of thing that I still love to this day, right? Like a bunch of card draw interaction and like a few threats that you can just ride to victory is probably still my favorite type of Magic to play mechanically. And oddly enough, my first taste of that was not, Young Pyromancer. It was Managorger Hydra, a green 1/1 with trample.
Perfect. It's also nice you're more likely to have your green mana on turn 3, so the fact that it's a 3-drop actually kind of works, right?
Yeah, you got to splash it. My mana base was so bad in that deck. Just like whatever tapped dual lands I had around, and I remember I got like Stirring Wildwood, and I was like, this is cracked. This is so good. That's got to be in that pile.
It's in that pile for sure, yeah. 100%.
And I got to say, I have loved playing with this card in Sacred Geometry. It's one of the reasons I built Sacred Geometry is this card, which is a theme here. Like, I build cubes to play my favorite cards. That's why I built the old school cube largely to play cards like Masticore. I built Sacred Geometry largely to play cards like this, and it has been a real joy in that cube. It's been also better than I expected it to be. I kind of thought maybe this is a little bit of a trap, but I love it too much. I just want to put it in there. And the reality is that against blue decks with bounce, it's pretty suspect, but in any other matchup, so much of my removal is by design toughness based or power toughness based. And the fact that you can, if you know your opponent is playing red, play this on turn 4, play another 1-drop, and now be like, okay, now you need exactly a 3-damage spell right now. Otherwise, this is out of burn removal range for the rest of the game, right? You're not going to be able to kill this with a shock ever if I, double spell the turn I play it. It's really interesting. And then it's just a beautiful, simple card that you can still play the way I used to play back when I had this weird kitchen table modern deck.
Yeah, I mean, I love this card as well. I was actually looking through Origins this morning and was surprised that it was first printed here. It just feels like, I mean, there's sort of a blindness that I have to anything that is printed before a certain time. Not that I'm unfamiliar with it, but I don't have the same sense of chronology. So it's just like, oh, this feels like a card that's been part of Magic forever, but it wasn't. It's been a part of Magic as long as I have.
As long as you've been part of Magic. All right, this is the third card of my selection here is the one that I waffle the most on. And I wanted to choose a card from our many years of playing Commander as a representative of my love of the game during that era. There's a lot of options on the table. I mentioned cards like Astral Slide, Toshiro Umezawa, or Jeskai Ascendancy. Even Norn the Wary was on my list here as for consideration.
Oh, yeah.
I liked to build very, very weird decks in Commander. And usually that meant either having a really janky commander that I was actually trying to build around in some way and optimize, or it meant having a commander that really didn't mean much of anything, was just for like color identity purposes, and then the deck would have like a secret commander. Like I had a 5-color Nor in the Wary deck, which I thought was really cool and really fun. I think people have built mono red Nor in the Wary a lot in Commander, but I was like, well, I'll just play, Recruiter of the Guard and Imperial Recruiter and a bunch of other tutors, and then I can always have my Nor in the Wary. And then once I have it, you can't remove it, basically. It's almost impossible to remove, so it's pretty safe to have this your, like, secret commander because it never goes anywhere. Well, it goes a lot of places, but...
Until I play my Sapperling deck and I get it with Deathspore Thallid.
That's true. So anyway, I like to build weird decks like that, the 5-color deck where Jeskai Ascendancy is secretly the commander and the commander doesn't really matter. Like, those kind of decks are what I really like to build. And I waffled a lot what my favorite card from this era was, but I think ultimately it's just Skeleton Ship. This was my first commander deck that I really sunk time and money into. And at the time I was like, am I going to spend $5 on one Magic card? That feels so irresponsible.
Oh, bad news. You lost on that one. You're down $2.
No, it wasn't the Skeleton Ship, to be clear.
Great.
It was cards for the deck. A Skeleton Ship was not $5 at the time, certainly. This is a 5-mana 0/3. It's 3 blue-black for a legendary creature skeleton. It's actually not a ship in the type line, unless that's been errataed.
It has not. Nope, still just a skeleton.
When you control no islands, sacrifice Skeleton Ship. Off to a good start. And it has tap to put a -1/-1 counter on target creature. I loved this deck. It was the first deck that I really brewed hard and invested a bunch of time and resources into. And it was a deck that had a bunch of proliferate themes. I was playing with Skeleton Ship's mechanic on its face. I was trying to make that card good in an era where cards were a lot less good. This was the early days of Commander. But this was I remember playing this against everyone's Marin deck because the precons with Marin, Clan Nel Toth came out, and that deck was everybody had a Marin deck at the time, and so I was trying to hang.
At least one person had only Marin decks.
I was trying to hang with the Marins of Clan Nel Toths, and I was doing it with Skeleton Ship, and the deck was actually pretty successful in our local play group. And the way it worked was I always had a bunch of ways to untap things, obviously, so I could untap my Skeleton Ship, and
you got Fate Stitcher, you got a Pheto Alchemist.
Yep. There were others as well,
and more,
And I had other creatures that tap for value, and obviously lots of ways to proliferate, and I also had a bunch of instants in this deck. It was kind of a control deck, and the way that it played was early turns of the game, I was just playing stuff out. We were building up our boards, and then once I got to a certain point of critical mass, I was like, if you attack me, I will destroy you. I will hold up the ability.
This is your favorite thing to do, and I would be there
in
saying,
Commander, it is, yes.
Andy's the threat. We should all pay attention to Andy, and everybody would be we don't care. And then I'd be like, look, he's going to be the threat, and then you would just tie up the game in a way that I was like, I told you all, you didn't listen.
Yeah, you did that a lot, and no one ever listened. Frankly, I think I'd be a better politician than you.
You're much more persuasive, and you're. I'm just over here tapping my ship back and forth. It was compelling.
Yeah, but yeah, people would attack me, and I'd be like, all right, well, I'm gonna put 6 -1/-1 counters on your attackers, and then proliferate twice, and now you have no board. That's what you get for attacking me. Have we learned our lesson, Steve?
Yeah, we have, and the lesson is attack Andy early in the game. Don't let him get away with this. They didn't learn that lesson.
So yeah, this card I have a lot of affection for. It's got sick art. Art is important to me. I also love the art of Managorger Hydra for what it's worth. But the art of the Skeleton Ship is really evocative of the early days of Magic. And yeah, it was I am a hipster in a lot of ways. And this was my hipster commander choice at a time when everyone was playing Marin of Clan Nel Toth. I was like, no, I am playing Skeleton Ship and I will make it good and I will beat your Marin of Clan Nel Toth deck. And yeah, that's why it's got my nod for my sort of favorite card from that chapter of my relationship to the game.
I love that I literally cast this card 2 weeks ago at Cube Night. We talk a little bit about
it's in the oldest school, right?
Yeah, it's in the oldest school, and it's so hard to play with some of these old cards you have affection for, but Cube is so cool for that.
I drafted in the oldest school a while back too, and I was like, yes, I am so glad I get to put this card in my deck.
It's also funny that you've named a second card on the reserve list.
Oh, dang!
Which I'm only pointing out because you said you were deliberately not trying to do that.
Yeah, of course. That one's on the reserve list, and it's only $4, you say, or $3?
$3.37.
Spec on Skeleton Ship.
Gotta put
it's going to go to the
moon.
Gotta
put a disclaimer 60 seconds before that to tell Wizards of the Coast employees to stop listening to the podcast.
All right, the next one I'll let you try and guess. The next one is the card that is representative of my early relationship with Cube. What card do you think I chose as most important and meaningful to me from my early relationship with Cube? And I'll tell you, it's from the Bun Magic Cube era, before I had designed any other cubes.
I don't think any of the cards that I had picked out fit that, and I feel like I'm going to feel really stupid when I don't get it.
So far, you haven't gotten any of the cards, right?
None.
Okay.
None of them. All right, is it Balance?
Portent.
Portent. Okay, well, Brainstorm was on my list.
I do love Brainstorm, but I'm a hipster. Brainstorm's two people's favorite card.
Yeah.
I have to choose Portent. Portent, 1 blue mana for a sorcery. Look at the top 3 cards of target player's library, then put them back in any order. You may have that player shuffle. Draw a card at the beginning of next turn's upkeep. This is Ponder, but the draw is delayed. You don't draw to the beginning of the next upkeep, but you can target your opponent. I think if there's like a specific card in cubes like I am known for, say for a couple other more obvious examples, like Portent is a card that I know I have gotten many, many people to put in their cube.
And you feel good about that?
I do.
Great.
It is representative of first of all, my love for taking lots of game actions and playing lots of cantrips. I love 1-mana cantrips. I think they're really strong. I love putting them in a deck with things like Young Pyromancer or Monastery Mentor, as we mentioned, that make them that much better. And I think Portent is really underrated on raw power level by cube designers, still to this day. I mean, the delayed draw is bad. It is worse than Ponder. There is no doubt. It is a worse card than Ponder. But it's not as much worse as you think for a couple reasons. Number one, if you are playing it,
it's not that bad.
I'm going to be rehashing. I know I talked about this when we talked about, I think we did an episode of like underrated cards in Cube where we looked at like the least popular cards in our own Cube list and like picked some of the ones we thought were underrated. I know Portent was on that list for me. And so I know I'm rehashing what I said then, but I still believe it firmly. The first thing is that if you play this on turn 1, it is exactly Ponder. You almost never are going to be able to play an island or a blue spores, cast your cantrip, and then use the spell you drew before your opponent's next upkeep. So there, it's just as good as Ponder. And it's another copy of Ponder, which is one of the best cantrips of all time. So that's incredible. It's also almost as good as Ponder if what you're mostly doing is holding up counter magic, because you are unlikely to have to counter a spell on your own turn. So if you use your cantrip to find a counter spell, you draw it on your opponent's upkeep, you have that counter spell before that matters. It is still worse there because you might want to be drawing a land or something, and you can't play your land, obviously, that you're going to draw off of Portent. So it's not as good, but it's still, I've found that in games where I'm like, Portent, I'm casting bad Ponder, and I often realize that the delayed draw is not as big of a downside as I think it is because of reasons like this.
Maybe you have 8 cards in hand, and it's actually an upside.
That would be crazy, but I hope that happens to me someday, desperately. The other thing is that this card is not strictly worse than Ponder, because you can target your opponent, and not only does this come up way more than I think most people think it does, it is obscenely powerful and often just prompts concessions. Now, you really can't afford to Portent your opponent until you are a little bit ahead, at least. Like, if you need to find a card to catch up, you are always going to Portent yourself. But as soon as the board's at parity or you have a little bit of an advantage, and it's well, actually what's important here, especially if your opponent has very few cards in hand, you're well, actually what's important here is not necessarily that I draw something I need, but that my opponent doesn't draw something they need. You target them and you stack the 2 worst cards that are from the top 3 on top of their deck right on top, and you basically buy yourself a couple turns from having to deal with something that's actually a problem. And just to be clear, you always draw the card. It's not whoever you target with the Portent. So you still get to cantrip. You still play to 1-mana cantrip.
That would be pretty bad.
That'd be pretty bad. It's an old card that I think a lot of people don't know that I mechanically have gone to bat for. It fits my desired play patterns, and I think is also representative of what's great about Cube, is that in Constructed, you only ever play with the best cards, the best version of every effect. You're going to play just the best cantrip, the best removal spell, the best threat. And one of the great things about so many cubes is that there's a lot of variety. People love to play singleton cubes for a reason, and digging a little deeper into the back catalog of not just playing Ponder and Preordain and Brainstorm, but instead also playing Portent or whatever, is one of the joys of this format. And so to me, Portent represents all of that, and I only wish that I loved the art a little more, but it's okay. I don't hate it.
It's a little weird. I'm actually just scrolling through the rest of the Ice Age card file, and it's there's some really great illustrations in that set, and Portent's okay.
It's a little weird, but it's fine. If Wizards of the Coast ever gave me an opportunity, I think on the episode of Recross the Paths, Kate asked me what promo I would have made, and I, talked about other cards. But the real answer probably is if there was going to be an Andy Mangold signature card, I would love to have a Portent made in a modern frame with good art, and I would adore it.
I'm just thinking about again, going back to the confidence and your ability to sway people and just casting Portent, targeting your opponent, and then just very confidently saying, "Oh yeah, back in that order."
Even when they're all great.
Even when they're all great, yeah. That's a cool move.
I mean, obviously, if their top 3 cards are great, then you just reset and say, well, now you're drawing from a random deck anymore. Now that sort of you lucked having to have threat on top, and I think it didn't.
Now we reset to I know nothing.
Right. I mean, Barris told a story about casting Portent targeting his opponent on the recent recap episode, and it's like those kinds of stories are only possible because that card can target your opponent, and it's so sick. We're running a little overtime, but it's okay because there's actually very little to say about this last card. It's incredibly obvious. It's dumb, but it has to be on this list. Ornithopter.
Really? Okay. I was wondering if Ornithopter would have made it because I don't think of Ornithopter Cube existing because it's your favorite card, but it was just like a card that uniquely suited this interesting thought experiment.
Well, you got the order wrong. It became my favorite card because of how much time I've spent thinking about it and working on the cube.
Sure.
Yeah, I did like the card beforehand.
Do you want to tell people what Ornithopter does, in case they don't know?
For 0 mana, you get an artifact creature Thopter. It's a 0/2 with flying. I do remember playing with this card when I was a kid and being like, That
is what that card does.
Especially when you're 8. You're like, And I think at the time I was like, well, this is bad because it doesn't have power, and power is all that matters. And I also don't remember ever playing when I was a kid with auras or combat tricks or equipment didn't exist. So I don't remember ever thinking of buffing creatures. That was not the kind of magic I played when I was a kid. I was just like, I will ramp out Kamal Pit Fighter, and it has 6 power and haste. Yeah. And what are you going to do?
BYOB. Bring your own buff.
What's that? Lava Dart? What is that? I don't know what that is. Get it out of here. I think Ornithopter is a beautiful magic card. And the fact that it does cause people to make that, like, what do I do with this? And that it's from such the early days of Magic. I think it's Magic's first 0 mana creature, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds right.
It's either that or Phyrexian Walker, but Antiquities was before Tempest or Weatherlight or whatever Phyrexian Walker is in. So I think actually Shield Sphere is actually back there too.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, it's one of Magic's first 0 mana creatures. I want to say the first one. And it's a card that makes you go, You're like, okay, this either just gains me a little life by blocking something and dying, maybe blocking a 1-power creature multiple times. 0 mana gain a little life, not very good in most games of Magic. But it's got that artifact type line. It's got 2 toughness, which is something. That's, if you could augment that, it does some other things. Maybe there's a reason to have a 0 mana artifact in your deck. Maybe there's a reason to have a 0 mana creature of any kind. And it's this really elegant little tidy package that prompts you to like look at it and go, what do I do with this? And when I was a kid, the answer was, I don't know. I'm 8. I'm dumb. I don't know how to do anything with this card. I won't do anything with it. I'm going to go try and play.
That was very self-aware of you.
I'm going to go try and play Masticore now. But now as an adult, it does, I think, represent a lot of what I think is beautiful about this game, about the fact that it hints at a whole world of possibility with an incredible concision of text. Like, the card is so simple, and it just uses, the mana cost, the power and toughness, and the keyword flying, and the type lines. Like,
it uses every part of the Ornithopter.
It uses every part of it to, like, lead you to try and think of what you could possibly do with this. And I think that's really beautiful. And I don't think that Hunter Ornithopter's Cube would be anywhere near as good if, let's just imagine some hypothetical universe where Ornithopter doesn't exist. There's not an iconic 0 mana 0/2.
That's literally the joke is every single plane, every single universe, people will invent the Ornithopter. That's not possible.
Okay, fine. You know what I'm saying, though. Let's just imagine that I had to do it with Phyrexian Walker, right? I think Phyrexian Walker is way less elegant. And if I built the exact same cube, I think it would be way less resonant and way less interesting than the fact that it's Ornithopter. The name, the art over the years, they're all interesting. I don't love any of them, to be perfectly honest. The original is my favorite for sure. I think people think that the Mirrodin art is my favorite, but that's actually just the one I chose because I think it's way more...
it's more fun to alter.
More fun to alter than the original one. Yeah, like I said, there's not a whole lot to say about it. I think it's kind of obvious that it would be one of my favorite cards, maybe. But yeah, it is, and it definitely speaks to my sort of late stage engagement with Cube, whereas like Portent was like, here's me trying to like engage with Cube as this mostly power maxed eternal magic kind of manifestation, and my sort of maybe touch on that or my sort of impact on that was like Portent. That's the card that I want to contribute to this conversation where everyone's talking about the best cards in Magic's history. I think Portent should be included. And my sort of current investment with Cube is much more about like what kind of weird stuff can we do with this format. How can we make the weird stuff accessible? And in the same way that Ornithopter as a card makes you look at it and unfolds a bunch of possibilities in your head for what you could possibly do with this card that otherwise looks useless, I want my weird cubes to do the same thing. To be like, you hear about the conceit and you're like, okay, well, that seems weird. But also you immediately start like thinking in your head about what you could possibly do in that sort of weird clown shoes space as a player. So yeah. Masticore, Managorger Hydra, Skeleton Ship, Portent, and Ornithopter.
There's a couple cards that I'm surprised you didn't include on your list. Most notably, Bolas' Citadel, but maybe that's...
That was one of the ones in contention for my like Commander era card. I do love Bolas' Citadel, but not top 5.
Fair enough.
I do like artifacts a lot. It's worth noting. I'm not sure how many artifacts you mentioned at all. There was none in your top 5, and you didn't mention almost any when you were going through your stack of like 50. I like artifacts. I think they're cool.
Yeah, no, more of mine were birds and angels and fungus.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you all for tuning in to a perhaps self-indulgent conversation of Anthony and my favorite cards in Magic's history. I believe this episode is coming out the same day that our episode of Lords of Limited with Ethan Sachs is coming out. So if you want to hear us talk about playing Cube competitively with Ethan, go check out Lords of Limited. And if you're here because you heard that episode of Lords of Limited and you want to check out our podcast, thanks for coming on over. And this is what our thing is, I guess.
Although this is maybe not the most typical episode. Usually we talk more about Cube.
We talk so much about Cube.
I feel like we said the word commander more than we have in any other episode.
We talked about Commander way more than we normally do. That's really rare.
That is rare.
We do always talk about Cube.
Tune in next week for how do we make the Genesis Wave Cube. I'm actually excited for this.
I'm too. I'm going to be thinking about it. We do have a Patreon if you want to support the show. It's a little different than I think other podcasts. We don't really take home any of the money that we make on the Patreon. At least that's our goal. Our goal is to give all of it back to the community and also to pay our editor and offset our costs. So you can check that out. We do have a community initiative basically called the Cube Fellowship, where we try and make sure that some of the Cube community's best Cube designers and players are attending these grassroots Cube events. So you can check that out in the show notes. And also to kind of put our money where our mouth is, we have a transparent operating cost page where you can see all of our income and expenses over the 8 years that we've been doing this little website. So I think that's interesting. I'm proud of that. I'm proud we do that, and I think you should check it out if you are considering backing the show so you know what you're giving money to. All the music for this show is produced by DJ James Nasty, and the show is edited by Matthew. All the Magic cards are produced by Wizards of the Coast, and this podcast is produced by thinking really hard about Magic cards and speaking into microphones about it. Anthony, thank you for the gift of friendship and for the gift of Cube.
Thank you for the gift of commander as well,
No.
I guess. I mean, this was kind of fun for me to go back, look through a bunch of old nostalgic cards, and yeah, I mean, just appreciate the history with this game that I've had. I mean, it's been, 10 years now we've been playing?
Yeah. Yeah, when did Origins come out?
About 10 years ago.
Was it 2014 even?
2015, I think, is what I saw.
Wow. I'm old.
Not me.
I'm so old.